Right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today we are going to presenting about our English language varieties initiative.
So the purpose of this video is to conduct a research on the situation of English disposal and usage in expanding and outer circle countries.
We will discuss the spread of English language and its use as lingua franca. Hello, my name is SAFFIAH and I will be covering expanding circle country, which is China.
My name is SYAFIRAH and I will be covering outer circle country, which is Brunei.
My name is Rabiatul Adawiah and I will be covering expanding circle countries, which is Indonesia.
My name is NURALIA NATASYA and I'll be covering outer circle, which is Sudan.
And my name is Muhammad FARHAM and I will be covering outer circle country, which is Singapore.
Now let's proceed with our individual presentation. Now it's my turn to cover about one of the outer circle country. But before that, I will introduce myself. My name is SYAFIRAH and my ID number is SEC22110053. Moving on, now I will introduce my interviewee. First of all, his name is Aaron Bina. He is 80 years old and he comes from Brunei. Well, my name is SYAFIRAH and can you introduce a bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Aaron Bina.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Brunei and I'm 18 years old.
I see. So, thanks a lot for chatting with me today. I'm doing a little research to understand how English is used and what impact it has in Brunei. Your thoughts and experiences are super important and I love to hear from you. But I have got a few questions that won't take too long. So, before I start asking a few questions, I'm going to explain to you about the spread of the English language. So the spread of the English often referred to as the second diaspora or the globalization of English, mark the widespread adoption or an adoption of English across the globe, primarily occurring the 20th and the 21st centuries. So to get started, I love to understand the historical context of English in Brunei. So, can you tell me how English first came to Brunei? Was it through colonization, trade, or maybe another influence?
It does come through the colonization of the British ruler.
Mm-hmm.
It mainly introduced because the Brunei was ruled by the British.
Mm-hmm.
When the British took control of the country, they brought the English language with them.
Mm.
This happened during the time when Brunei become a British protectorate. Yeah.
It's okay.
Sorry. While trade and other influence also played a role in spreading English. The most significant reason for the introduction was the British presence. The British used English in government, education, and businesses, which helped establish it as an important language over time. English became widely used and valued in Brunei, largely due to the colonial influence. Even though the impact of British rule can be seen in continued importance of Brunei in Brunei education system and official affairs.
I see. So next, thinking about why English has become so widespread, what do you think are the main factors driving the spread and adoption of English in your country?
My country. All right. In Brunei, English is a language that many people use because of it help them in different part of their lives. In school, teachers uses English to teach many subjects. This help students understand better and be ready for jobs later on. Speaking English is also important for finding good jobs, like an office or hotels, because many companies want employers who can speak English well. When tourists visit Brunei, English is handy for talking with them and making them feel welcome. Plus, English is everywhere, on television, in movies, in the internet. So knowing it makes life easier. Overall, in Brunei, English is like a superpower that opens up a lot of opportunities.
I see. What an interesting knowledge I just learned today. So next, looking at how things have changed over the years, how has the use of English grown in Brunei? What do you think has caused this growth?
The people are using English because they can watch movies and go online in English, making it easier to learn. Plus, the government is working to make sure everyone can speak English well by improving English classes and encourage people to speak both English and our native language, which is Malay.
I see. So by all the things you just said, on a more personal note, how do you personally feel about the increasing use of English in your country?
I have a mixed feeling about the growing uses of English here. One of hand is it helped us connect globally and open up more opportunities. But on the other hand, I worry that our own language and culture might get lost. It's important to find a way to keep our tradition alive while also embracing English.
I see. So last but not least, the question for the last one is, every place have its own way of making English unique. So can you share some special words or phrases that are part of Brunei's version of English?
Sure. In Brunei, we've got some quite unique words and phrases that add a local flavor to our English. For instance, we often use kampong instead of village. Kue, for our delicious traditional cakes and dessert.
I see.
Tamu, when we talk to our bustling, those tasty Indian Muslim food stalls, and tutong, when referring to one of our districts. The words are part of what makes our English quite Bruneian.
I see. So fun fact, we both have like both country, Malaysian and Brunei have like the same language, like we use Malay, right?
Yeah.
So almost all the unique phrases that you just gave to me is almost the same as Malaysian. Yeah, that's so interesting.
Oh, so
Okay.
interesting.
So, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and experiences with me. I really enjoy hearing your unique perspective. So, if you ever think of anything else or just want to share more, feel free to reach out and have a wonderful day.
All right, thank you.
Now let us move on to the second question. So the first thing that the speaker highlight for the second question is that in Brunei, English became important mainly because of British rule. When the British took control, they brought English with them. Next, they use it in government, schools and businesses, which made it a key language. Over time, English became widely used and valued because of this. Even today, we see the effects of British rule in how important English is in Brunei schools and official activities. Next is also helpful for communicating with tourists, making them feel welcome. Last but not least, the speaker also highlight that English is common in media like TV, movies, and the internet. So knowing it makes things easier and more accessible. For the first question, the first thing that the speaker mentioned is that in Brunei, English is an important part of daily life. For example, in schools, teachers use it to teach many subjects, helping students learn and prepare for jobs. Other than that, speaking English is key for getting good jobs, especially in offices and hotels, where employees prefer employees who can speak it well. Now we move to the third question. So the first thing that the speaker mentioned is that in Brunei, more people are using English because they can easily learn it through movies and the internet. Other than that, the government is also helping by making English classes better and encouraging everyone to use both English and their native language. So for question number 4, the speaker feel both good and bad about more people using English there. It helps them connect with the world and get more chances. But he's worried their own language and culture might disappear, so he suggested that they need to keep their traditions alive while using English too. Now we move on to our last question. So first and foremost, the speaker said that in Brunei, there are unique words and phrases used in their localized English. For example, that the speaker gave is that kampung is used instead of village. Kueh refers to traditional cakes and dessert. Tamu is used for busting traditional market. Mamaks denote Indian Muslim food stall. And last, Tutong is the name of one of their district. But other than that, based on my research that are not mentioned by interviewee, I found that there are some words used by Bruneian that are similar with English word, such as bank for bank, hospital for hospital. Other than that, there are also Malay Brunei borrow words from English word, which is television, and restaurant for restaurant. Now for the references that I managed to get based on my interviewee, the prominence of English in Brunei can be traced back to British colonization. The British established English as a key language in government, education, and business, and this influence persists today. Next, the growth of English usage is supported by increased access through media and the internet. Government efforts to improve English education and promote bilingualism further contribute to this expansion. Last but not least, for the sector of lingua franca, first of all, English is widely used in business, education, and government sectors in Brunei. It serves as a key language for professional interactions and higher education. Other than that, although Brunei Malay is the official language and predominantly used in daily life and formal communications, English plays a significant role in international relations and global business due to Brunei's historical ties with the British Empire. So that's the end for my part that covered about one of the outer circle country, which is Brunei. Bye!
My name is Rabiatul Adawiah binti SHAMSUL SUBARI, and my ID number is SEC22110050, and I'm going to interview an interviewee in expanding circle country, which is in Indonesia. So first, I'm going to presenting about the background of my interviewee. So her name is Nabila Najwa, and she is 20 years old. She's from Indonesia and her ethnicity is Indonesian Javanese. She's studying at Islamic Public University of Syed Ali Rahmatullah, and she could speak 4 languages, which is Javanese, Indonesian, English, and Arabic.
Can we start now?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So
I actually wanna introduce myself because
okay.
I have using my nicknames for this long time.
Okay, sure, you
So
can introduce yourself.
actually wait, is this recorded?
Yes, it's recorded.
Wait, for the first time, I will say my name is not actually Pia. Yeah, this is my full name,
Mm.
Nabila Najwa, and Pia is just nickname, Yeah.
Mm.
So you can,
So I can call you Pia, right?
yeah, of course, yeah, of course, yeah.
Pia, you came from Indonesia, right?
Yeah, I'm originally Indonesian.
Which part of Indonesia you come from?
From East Java,
Oh,
you
it's
know,
Java.
yeah,
I
around
see.
Surabaya.
I see. Okay. So
Yep.
I'm going to start now. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So today we have Pia, which is come from Indonesia. I will interview Pia to discuss on the spread of the English language in Indonesia, focusing on its role in globalization and its status as a lingua franca. So before I start asking Pia a few questions, I'm going to explain to Pia about the spread of the English language. The spread,
Okay.
the spread of the English language is actually often referred to as the second diaspora or the globalization of English. Marks the widespread adoption and adaptation of English across the globe, primarily occurring in the 20th and 21st centuries. This phase follows the first diaspora, which saw English spread through British colonialism in regions like North America, the Caribbean, and Australia. So as a lingua franca, I'm sorry. Okay, so now that we've
Yeah,
explored
it's fine.
how English has become a global lingua franca, influencing and being influenced by culture worldwide, I'd love to hear Pia's perspective on this. So without further ado, let's jump on our first question. So Pia, the first question that I'm going to ask you is, was English introduced through colonization, trade, or another influence in your country?
This is based on my personal experience and knowledge.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that British was colonized in Indonesia in short period times, like for 2 or 3 years, and maybe it's the another reason English was influenced here. And
Mm,
as far as I know that English was more spreading when the Dutch colonized us for a long, long time.
I
I
see.
think Dutch more sorry Dutch more um, like influencing us using the English.
Mm. Oh,
Yeah.
I see. So that is such a great answer, Pia. Now shifting gears a bit,
Mhm.
I'm curious about the primary elements that drive the spread of English in your country. So, Pia, do you mind sharing to me what are the main factors driving the spread and adoption of English in your country?
Uh, maybe after the invasion, English became a basic language, and it then adapts to the local language. And of course,
Mm,
because of the globalization through the internet or like social media, more influence English to adapting here. Yeah, that's all.
mm. I see. So, thank you for sharing your perspective on the driving forces behind English adoption in Indonesia. Building on that, I'd like to delve deeper into another aspect. So, could you tell me how has English language use grown in your country and what has caused this growth?
To be honest, English is barely used in our daily conversation,
I
and I
see.
think it is too far. If I personally, I
Mm,
can if I can compare it to Malaysia, and
mm.
even Indonesian word have it roots from English.
Oh, I see.
Mostly using the adapted version of the English, if I can say.
Mm,
And we usually talk in English only at school or college, and
oh, I
then
see.
uh, I think I think only Gen Zs and millennials are using the English because
Mm,
I mostly find them on like Twitter or X, yeah,
oh,
on Twitter or X or another social media.
I see.
Because I have some mutuals or friends from yeah in Twitter and Instagram and WhatsApp for their foreigns like you who are
Mm,
using English for
mm,
conversation. And if I can edit more about this is from my personal experience.
mm,
And I grew up in a small city in
I
East Java,
see.
so our neighborhood, like friends or some like that, are speaking in Javanese or bahasa
Mm.
Jawa.
Ah,
Yeah,
I see.
yeah. And even we barely talk in Indonesia, in bahasa Indonesia. We barely talking only
Oh.
in college with our lecturer like that. And if we speaking in English, it's kind of rare like that.
Oh, I see.
So
So English is like the third language in your country?
um that's probably yes,
Oh, I
but
see.
it not commonly used with
Mm.
our society. I'm also barely using English
Mm.
for our daily conversation in real life. I mean in real life, yeah.
Mm, I see.
Yeah, that's
So
all.
your perspective on the growth of English language used in Indonesia was really insightful. Now let's keep our interview session flowing with the fourth question. Actually, I'm quite curious about your thoughts on the growing use of English in Indonesia. So Pia, how does you personally feel about the increasing use of English in your country?
Yeah. Of course, I hope English will be spreading more and being common or at least standard for our daily conversation. And I hope people will not looking down on it.
Mm-mm.
Personally, as a barely active English speaker in Indonesia, sometimes
Mm.
we get offended by people saying so Inggris, blah
Ah,
blah blah like that.
yes, yes.
And yeah, even though they are well known that English is an international language and a standard language. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's all.
I see. So that was really fascinating to hear your perspective on the increasing use of English in your country. So now, Pia, can you share to us what are some unique words or phrases in the localized version of English spoken in your country?
Mm, yeah, there are so many English words that being localized in
Ah,
Indonesian.
ah,
If I can give them examples like netizen, netizens,
netizen.
is short for net and citizen, right? And
Ah,
sometimes we using netizen,
mm,
but or we can say it warga net. So citizen
oh,
is warga kan,
mm,
and net ya just net gitu deh. And then
oh,
maybe for calm like chill, we say it calm like that.
mm,
And word trend
mm,
trend we using trend,
mm,
but without d in the end of the word. Yeah, and
mm,
like word unique. We also call it unik. We call it
unik,
unik.
unik.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
UNIK. Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, we
unik.
use the same phrases in Malay too. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, unik, unik.
And maybe the last like we had it when during the pandemic like online and offline we
Mm-mm.
adapted as daring and luring.
Daring and luring.
So yeah, online is daring,
Oh,
online, on
on.
the line kan. So
Ah.
daring is dalam jaringan gitu.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
interesting. I didn't know
Like,
about this.
and then like offline,
Ah.
we adapt it as luring di luar jaringan, yeah,
Oh.
off the line. Yeah, like
Oh.
that.
Oh, so you like short form it.
Yeah,
Oh, I
right. That's
see.
right.
I just know about this. Thank you so much, Pia, for joining me today.
Yeah.
If
So from the question one that the interviewee just answered, I could conclude that the British briefly colonized Indonesia for about 2 to 3 years, during which time they contributed to the early influence of English in the region. However, it was during the long period of Dutch colonization that English spread more significantly. Interestingly, the Dutch themselves promoted the use of the English language in Indonesia. For the question 2, from the interviewee's answer, we can conclude that after the invasion, because of the Dutch, English became a foundational language and adapted to local languages. Now, through the internet and social media, English has further increased influence in Indonesia. Based on interviewee's answer for question 3, I could conclude that English is fairly used in daily conversations in Indonesia, though it is less prevalent compared to Malaysia. Many Indonesian words have roots in English, often appearing as adapted versions. In Indonesia, English is primarily used in academic settings, such as schools and colleges. Generation Z and millennials use English more frequently, especially on social media platforms like X. According to the interviewee, who grew up in a small city in Java, most of her friends and neighbors primarily speak Javanese. They rarely use English in daily conversations and only speaking it with lecturers in educational contexts. Based on the interviewee's response to question 4, we can conclude the following, which is the interviewee hoped that English will become more widespread and common in Indonesian daily life. She also hopes that Indonesians will appreciate the value of English and not look down on its usage. Occasionally, the interviewee feels offended when Indonesians use the phrase "so English," which means to pretending to be English to describe those who prefer speaking English. She views this as a misunderstanding, where speaking English is seen as arrogance rather than recognizing it as an international and standard language. From the interviewee's answer for question number 5, I found that these words that are given by interviewee are almost similar with English, which is unique. The word unique in Indonesia is directly adapted from unique word, which is in English. Now, this is some Indonesian word that are being borrowed from English word, which is the word trend in Indonesia. The English word trend is adapted to trend in Indonesia. There are also some Indonesian words that are borrowed from English that I make a research, which is ketchup in English, and it turns into ketchup in Indonesia, and rattan in English, which is turned into rotan in Indonesia. For my reflection based off the interview, I recognize that English's significance in Indonesia began with the brief British colonization and was further solidified during the Dutch colonial period when the Dutch encouraged its use. This historical context has laid a strong foundation for English, especially in academic and professional settings. I've observed that the rise of the internet and social media has accelerated English influences, with youngsters' generation increasingly using it online. So I noticed that English has deeply influenced Indonesian vocabulary, with many English words like unique from unique and trend from trend. Now, let's talk about English as lingua franca in Indonesia. English is a key component of the curriculum in Indonesian schools and universities, often used for academic purposes and as a medium of instruction in specialized fields like science and technology. English is used in official documents, international agreements, and diplomatic interaction, facilitating Indonesia's engagement in global affairs. English enables Indonesians to engage with global culture, including literature, films, and music, fostering cross-cultural understanding and influence.
Hi, my name is NURALIA Natasha binti Harun. I will discuss the variety of English language in others country, which is Sudan. Now, I will explain the background of the interviewee. His name is Jamal Abdullah Sliman. He is from Sudan and currently pursuing his study on PhD in chemical engineering at UTP.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Natasha. Before that, could you please introduce yourself first?
My name is Jamal Abdullah Sulaiman. I came to Malaysia here in 2015. So I'm studying PhD in chemical engineering.
All right, thank you. So before I start asking you a few questions, I am going to explain to you about the spread of English language. So the spread of the English language often refer to a second diaspora or the globalization of English, mark the widespread adoption and adaptation of English across the globe, primarily occurring in the 20th and 21st century. So for the first question, was English introduced through colonization, trade, or another influence in your country?
Okay. English was introduced mainly through during the colonization era. The British Egyptian rule in between 1899 and until our independence, 1956. So mainly English was introduced that time for educational and governance as well as administrative purpose.
All right, thank you. So second question is, What are the main factors driving to the spread and adaptation of English in your country, personally in Sudan?
Mainly when English was introduced for three purposes, as I said, the governance, administrative, as well as education. But the widespread of English in my country, I would say, is education, because education is the main. The main reason, the main factor that contributed to the spread of English in my country.
Okay. How has English language use grown in your countries, and what has caused this growth?
Yes, as I said, is because of the use of English in the education system, especially the higher education, the tertiary education, and there are a lot of subjects that have been taught in English, and also the widespread of international relationship or international communication. So this has also contributed to the widespread of English in my country.
In your opinion, how does you personally feel about the increasing use of English in your country?
I would say, because especially nowadays with the spread of social media, and also the job prospect, as well as the international communication, as well as the immigration, I would say, this has also contributed to the widespread of English in my country. And also the students are going study abroad, so this one also has kind of compel them to study English so that they can prepare themselves to study abroad.
Okay. Do you mind sharing some unique word or phrases in the localized version English spoken in your country?
Because Arabic has also influenced the way English is spoken in my country, so you can see a few words. Originally it's Arabic, but now has kind of become an English version in my country. One or three words that I would say is one, jalabiya, as well as falafel, and also shawarma. So all these are Arabic words, but now even the Englishman can understand what I'm saying.
All right. All right, that's all. Thank you so much for helping us.
Welcome.
In Sudan, English was introduced primarily through colonization. Sudan was under British Egyptian rule from 1899 to 1956, during which English became the language of administration, education, and governance. This colonial period established English as a significant language in the country, influencing its use in official and educational contexts even after Sudan gained independence. While administration and governance are listed as initial goal for the widespread of the English, their influence is less substantial compared to the education. This is due to the fact that English played a crucial role in the educational system, especially in higher education. The use of English language has grown significantly due to several key factors. One of the key factors is in educational reform. English has become a major part of the curriculum from early education through higher education. A lot of subjects have been taught in English, especially in international relationship and communication often conduct courses in English, boosting proficiency among students. This has contributed to the widespread of English in Sudan. The increasing use of English in Sudan is largely driven by several factors. Nowadays, social media play a significant role in spreading English, as does the demand for international communication and job prospects. Additionally, many students aim to study abroad, which compel them to learn English to prepare for their studies. These factors collectively contribute to the widespread use of English in Sudan country. In Sudan, the localized version of English include unique words and phrases influenced by Arabic and Sudanese culture. Some examples that are originally from Sudan but have become an English word include jalabiya, refer to a traditional Sudanese garment worn by men. Falafel, a term used to describe a deep-fried ball or patty-shaped fritters of Egyptian origin, featuring in Middle Eastern cuisine. Shawarma refer to Middle Eastern dish that originate in the Levant region of the Arab world during the Ottoman Empire, consisting of meat that is cut into thin slices, stacked in inverted cone, and roasted on a slow-turning vertical split. There are also some information that I decided to add which is not mentioned by the interviewee, which is some words that are used by Sudanese that are almost similar with English. Since Sudan use Arabic in daily basis, most of these words are in Arabic, like computers, radio. Now it's Arab Sudan words that are borrowed from English, which is break and supermarket. During the British Egyptian era, English was introduced and is now widely used in Sudan, particularly in official and educational contexts. English became the primary language in school and college as a result of educational reform, which improved competency and cross-border communication. This role is further reinforced by contemporary variables such as social media and the desire to study abroad. The use of regional words like shawarma and SYAFIRAH reflect cultural fusion. As a result, English is now widely used in Sudan. During the British Egyptian era, English was introduced and is now widely used in Sudan, particularly in official and educational contexts. English became the primary language in school and college as a result of educational reform, which improved competency and cross-border communication. This role is further reinforced by contemporary variables such as social media and the desire to study abroad. The use of regional words like shawarma and SYAFIRAH reflect cultural fusion. As a result, English is now widely used in Sudan. First, I'm going to present about the background of my interviewee. His name is Sam. His age is 20 years old. He is from mainland China and his ethnicity is Chinese. He could speak two languages, which is English and Mandarin.
First of all, my name is NATASYA and I will introduce you to the globalization of English first. Globalization of English is a phenomenon that has unfolded over several centuries. As a result of British colonization expansion, English has spread to various parts of the world, becoming a dominant language. So now let's delve into the discussion. First of all, can you introduce your name, ethnicity, your age, and where are you from?
I'm from China. My name is Sam.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let's start. China is known for its rich culture and history. Was English introduced through colonization, trade, or another influence in your country?
English was primarily introduced to China through trade and later through education and diplomatic exchanges. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, trade with Western countries, particularly the British, brought the English language to coastal cities like Shanghai and Hong Kong. The establishment of treaty ports following the Opium Wars also facilitated the spread of English. Additionally, English gained further prominence with China's opening up and reform policies in the late 20th century.
Okay, thank you for the detailed response. So let's explore to the next question. What are the main factors driving the spread and adoption of English in your country?
The main factors driving the spread and adoption of English in China include globalization, economic development, and educational policies. As China integrated into the global economy, English became essential for international business trade and diplomacy. The Chinese government has also emphasized the importance of English in education, making it a compulsory subject in schools and hold on.
It's okay, sorry. Take your time.
Key component of higher education and professional development.
I see. How has English language use grown in your country, and what has caused this growth?
English language use in China has grown significantly, particularly since the late 20th century. This growth is driven by several factors, including educational reforms that introduced English as a mandatory subject in schools from an early age, and the increasing need for English proficiency in multinational companies and for engaging in international trade and business. Cultural influence such as exposure to English language media, including movies, music, and the internet, have also played a role. Additionally, government policies aimed at improving English proficiency among citizens to enhance China's global competitiveness contributed to this growth.
Okay, that's interesting. For our next question, how do you personally feel about the increasing use of English in your country?
Personally, feeling about the increasing use of English in China can vary. Many might feel that the rise of English opens up more opportunities for education, employment, and international communication, and it can enhance cultural exchange and understanding. On the other hand, some might worry about the potential erosion of Chinese culture in the identity and language due to the dominance of English.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your thought on that. So moving on to our last question for today. What are some unique words or phrases in the localized version of English spoken in your country?
In China, there are several localized English words and phrases, often referred to as challenge, and an English phrase directly translated from 好久不见, out of reach, sometimes used incorrectly to mean not answering the phone instead of its typical English meaning. And no money, no talk, a phrase used to indicate that financial discussions are necessary before any further conversation. Their examples reflect the unique blending of Chinese linguistic and cultural elements with English.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing your insight and expertise on the influence of English language in China. So I wish you all the best and in the future, and thank you very much for joining me today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
So for the first question, he said that China first learned English through trade, then through diplomatic and educational exchange. Trade with Western nations, especially the British, brought the English language to coastal towns like Shanghai and Hong Kong in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. English language also expanded more easily after treaty ports were established after the Opium Wars. The late 20th century policies of China, openings up and reform also contributed to the increased popularity of English. So for the first question, he said that China first learned English through trade, then through diplomatic and educational exchange. Trade with Western nations, especially the British, brought the English language to coastal towns like Shanghai and Hong Kong in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. English language also expanded more easily after treaty ports were established after the Opium Wars. The late 20th century policies of China, openings up and reform also contributed to the increased popularity of English. For the next question, he stated that globalization, economic growth, and educational reform are the primary force behind English adoption and dissemination in China. English became necessary for doing business, trade, diplomacy internationally as China merged with the world economy. Chinese government has also highlighted the value of English education, establishing it as a requirement for graduation and professional advancement as well as a mandatory subject in schools. For the third question, he said that China has become a far more English-speaking nation, especially in the last decade of the 20th century. A number of factors such as educational change that made English a required subject in schools for an early age and the growing demand for English proficiency in multinational cooperation and for conducting business international are responsible for this growth. Cultural factors have also been involved, such as exposure to English language music, films, and the internet. This expansion has also been aided by government initiatives to raise citizens' English proficiency in order to increase China's competitiveness abroad. For the next question, the speaker's opinion on the growing English-speaking population in China are subjective. Many people may believe that the popularity of English has increased opportunities for learning, working, and communicating internationally. It can also improve cross-cultural dialogues and understanding. On the other hand, he may be concerned about how English dominance would weaken Chinese language and cultural identity. For the last question, several English terms and phrases have been localized in China and are commonly referred to as Chinglish. For example, the English phrase out of reach is sometimes misinterpreted as meaning not answering the phone, rather than its typical English meaning, and the phrase no money, no talk indicate the financial discussion must come before any further conversation. This illustration shows how English and China language and culture have been uniquely blended. There are also some research that I do, which is not mentioned by interviewee, which is some words that used by Chinese that are almost similar with English, which is coffee, cafe, chocolate, chocolate. Now, it's Chinese words that are borrowed from English, sofa, sofa. For my reflection based off the interview, I see that English was introduced to China through trade and diplomacy in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Its prominence increased with China's economic reform and globalization integrating English into various aspects of Chinese life. I recognize that the spread of English in China is driven by globalization, economic development, and educational policies. English is crucial for international business and diplomacy, and the Chinese government has made it a key subject in school to enhance global competitiveness. I observe that while English offers educational and professional opportunities, it also raises concern about cultural identity. The rise of Chinglish reflects the unique blending of English with Chinese cultural elements, illustrating both the integration and adaptation of English in China. So, For the English as lingua franca, English is widely used as a lingua franca in international business, diplomacy, and academia within China. Professionals and students often learn English to engage with the global market and access international resources. In major cities like Beijing and Shanghai, English is commonly used, especially in business and among expatriates. However, English proficiency varies significantly across the country, with rural areas having less prevalence.
So, his name is Muhammad Apin Ashten. Age is 34. Nationality is Singaporean. Ethnicity is Malay. Language, Bahasa Melayu as a main language and English as a second language. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Alright, my name is Muhammad Farham bin Saharudin, and today we are going to discuss about the topic of globalization of English. So, before I start, um, uh, let me explain something about globalization of English. So, the spread of the English language is like a global adventure story. It started centuries ago with British explorer and trader who brought English to the new land. Over time, English became the official language in many British colonies, weaving its way into local culture in the 20th century. Hollywood movie, pop music, and the internet played a huge role in making English the world favorite second language. So, with our interviewee today, which is Abang Nash, before I start, may I know where do you come from?
In Singapore, based in Singapore.
Okay, so basically Singapore is country that use English as their second language, right?
Yes, quite common.
So there are few questions that I'm going to ask you today, and I hope that everything are going to get well lah. Okay,
Alright.
I start. So for the first question, which is, was English introduced through colonization, trade, or another influence in your country?
I believe it's coming from the trades lah. I think Singapore is one of the um, points where a lot of people from other countries come to do their trading lah. So from then on, I believe there is a lot of people who is coming from other country where they are Englishmen lah. So from then on, I believe that is where the spread of English is coming from lah.
Okay, I see. Moving on to the next question. What are the main factors driving the spread and adoption of English in your country?
I think one of the main factors of us using English as the second language in our country is because from what you all have known is Singapore is a multi-racial country, so there is a few racial in Singapore, which is like Malay, Indian, Chinese, and Eurasian as well. So there's a mix of everything. So I believe that is one of the main factor that spreads the second language as English. Yeah.
Um, to the next question. How has English language use grown in your country, and what has caused this growth?
What has caused this growth in the country? I think English is quite a powerful language that I believe everyone should have to learn within themselves lah. I think one of the most commonly used in terms of communication is English language. I think it's one of the most universal language that everyone seems to understand quite well lah. So I think it's quite useful lah.
I see. So, how does you personally feel the increasing use of English in your country?
I think for me, I don't mind. I think it's a good it's a good skill to have, but personally, I think I would feel that we kind of lean more towards English nowadays that we tend to slowly forget about our main language, which is like for me, I'm born and raised as a Malay, so Malay Muslim in Singapore. So I think nowadays the parents also we tend to converse with the children in English more instead of Malay lah. So I think for the kids nowadays, the new generations, I think it's hard for them to speak Malay even in like simple words. They can understand, but they cannot reply. So I think the 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 I think we tend to use a bit more English more than our Malay lah nowadays. So I think it's a bit sad for the younger generations.
Okay, so
Mm.
understand. So okay, for the last question, what are some unique words or phrases in the localized version of English spoken in your country?
Okay, so for Singapore, we have this term called Singlish. So we have a slang to it which we end everything with a la. So as simple as like okay lah, things like that lah. So we tend to we name it Singlish lah. It's a Singapore version of the English.
Oh, all right. That's all for our interviews today. Thank you
Mm.
once again, Abang Nash, for uh, cooperating with me today. So that's all for our question today. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Alright.
So, for the first question, I believe that colonial influence, English was introduced to Singapore during British colonization, established it as the language of administration, education, and commerce. British rule brought English medium education and governance, making English essential for advancements. For the second point is trade hub. Singapore role as a major trading port further popularized English among diverse communities. Merchants use English for trade, solidifying its importance in daily life and businesses. Third point, which is the modern significance. Today, English remains crucial in Singapore for economic growth and global communication. It fosters multicultural understanding and supports Singapore's position as a global business and cultural hub. So, for the second question, the first point is the multicultural society. Singapore's diverse population, including Malays, Indians, and Chinese, require common language for communication. English bridge cultural differences and promote unity among Singaporeans. It helps maintain social harmony and a shared national identity. For the second point, which is the education policy, Singapore's government emphasizes the bilingualism with English and the mother tongue language, which is in Malaysia, Mandarin, Tamil, taught in school. English is used in education to ensure all students become proficient. This prepares Singaporeans for global opportunities and enhance their job prospect. So, for the third question, first point, which is the universal communication. English has grown in Singapore because it serves as a universal language understood worldwide. It allows Singaporeans to communicate effectively across cultures and borders. English globally supports international relations, trades, and cultural interaction. For second point, which is the educational focus, Singapore emphasizes English education from an early age. School teach English intensively, ensuring broad fluency among the population. Bilingual policies reinforce English alongside with local language, enhancing its everyday use. As I mentioned, as our interview among us, she stated that English is a universal language that can be used in worldwide. So for the fourth question, I think that Abang Nash actually have a positive view towards this question. Personally, he said that personally, I see the increasing use of English in Singapore as beneficial for improving communication skill and connecting globally. So, English proficiency helps in assessing international opportunities and engaging with people from different cultures. Of course, it supports Singapore's in the global economy and enhance career prospects. So he also stated that he has a concern about how English affect his local language. As mentioned, however, there is a worry that focusing more on English might lead to a decline in proficiency in local language. Younger generation may not fully learn their mother tongue if English is prioritized. It is important to maintain a balance by promoting both English proficiency and preserving local language to preserve cultural heritage. So, last but not least, for the fifth question, Bang Nas stated that Singapore has a term that uses Singlish. So, Singlish is basically a word that when you combine an English and Singaporean language. So, basically as simple as word okay lah. That's an example that come from Bangladesh. So, I also do some research about the information that is not mentioned by the interviews, which is some of the words that are used by Singaporeans that are almost similar with English. For example, air conditioner. They call it as an aircon. Now, it's English Singaporeans word that are borrowed from English. Chop, derived from the English word chop. Hawker, referring to a street food vendor or stall. Derived from the English word hawkers. And next, for personal reflection, reflecting on the spread of adoption of English in Singapore, it's clear that the language presence is deeply rooted in historical and practical factors. English has become increasingly prevalent due to its role as a global language. Its utility in international communication and commerce has further cemented its importance in Singaporean society. I appreciate the skill of speaking English and recognize its advantage in communication. However, I am concerned about the potential downside of its dominance. The strong emphasis of English sometimes leads to the neglect of native language, which is Malay. So, English as a lingua franca. English is the primary language used in government, administration, and the mediums of instruction in school. This uniformity in language helps streamline administrative process and ensures that education is accessible to all ethnic groups. English facilitates communication among Singapore's diverse ethnic groups, allowing people from different linguistic backgrounds to interact and collaborate effectively in both social and professional contexts.
Are some of the similarities that we found from the analysis that we made.
The English language was introduced primarily through British colonization in Brunei, China, Singapore, Indonesia, and Sudan. Sudan, Indonesia, Brunei, and China extensively incorporate English into their educational system.
Most of the interviewees that such as Brunei, China, and Singapore have a mixed feelings about their spread of English in their country because they are afraid that people in their country forget about their own language. For differences, while Sudan, Indonesia, Brunei, and China use English moderately, Singapore incorporates English regularly into daily life.
English was introduced to Brunei, Singapore, and Sudan through British colonialism in the 18th and 19th centuries. In Indonesia, while the British briefly introduced English, the Dutch later promoted its use during their longer colonial rule. In China, English spread primarily through trade with Western nations despite some British colonial influence.
English played different roles in Sudan, Indonesia, Brunei, Singapore, and China. It is mainly formal in Sudan and Indonesia due to colonial and educational influence. Brunei uses English both formally and informally, while Singapore incorporates it widely in daily life. In China, English is prevalent in education and business, but less so in everyday conversation. For preference and summary, in Sudan, its moderate preference English is important in education and business, but Arabic is dominant in daily life.
As for Singapore, there are very high preference. English is an official language and the primary medium of communication.
So for Indonesia, they have moderate preference and English is important in education and business, but Bahasa Indonesia is official language.
As for China, high preference English is valued for education and employment, though Mandarin is predominant in daily life.
For Brunei, high preference English is an official language and widely used in education, business, and government alongside Malay.
Thank you for watching.